Hello everyone, this video is about Remnant applications and scaling, and what it is in general, with a focus on humans. I'm splitting my Remnant video into two parts, as without splitting them, the video is too long for most of y'all brain-rotted folks, and also because there's differences in applications for robots and humans. Remnant is described as a mixing of the tangible and the intangible, and memories with the present. Remnant is also described by Eleanor in a broken sentence as power, life, eternal, which basically translates to the power of eternal life. The definition varies depending on who is describing Remnant, what their goals are, and their knowledge of it, but they all contain at least some truth to their definitions. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the ways it can affect humans who possess Remnant. As with most Remnant users, they obtain a form of immortality. For humans, it's a type 3 immortality, which is primarily based on regeneration. So, how does regeneration work for humans, and what are its limits? To start with, it cannot regenerate parts of the body or organs that have already been completely lost, or parts of the body not needed to live. This mainly has to do with the law of conservation of mass and energy. This is also why William Afton does not regenerate his skin, although he still has a functioning cardiovascular system which sustains his organs and brain. For example, the skin is technically an organ, but it's not actually required for survival in the most bare minimum basic sense. The man in room 1280 is also a fair example of said idea, and also you can throw in any other book where he's utterly decimated as a noteworthy example as well. Simply put, Remnant is able to sustain one's life and prevent death, and can even get rid of diseases like the rather outlandish quote-unquote super cancer. Anything fatal can be recovered from with Remnant, although it isn't likely to be instantaneous enough to be useful during any type of fight. Remnant is a limited source of energy, and as such, one has to obtain more of it, as eventually the source of energy fueling their regeneration will diminish. Next, Remnant users who are still somewhat human gain a form of enhanced strength, however, it's not for the reasons many people believe. Put simply, with the mind's functions being limited, the brain's self-imposed limits on our muscle strength output are not in place. We are only able to use roughly a third of our strength depending on the source due to said limit. Without this limit, bones may break, or other injuries may occur due to overuse of our muscles. However, when one's body is literally on the brink of death, either the function itself doesn't exist, or adrenaline is in constant flow, which overrides it directly. Feats in real life regarding humans on adrenaline include people towing 70 rowboats while shackled and handcuffed, and this police officer lifting a 3,500-pound SUV, which is about class 5 in terms of lifting strength. Obviously, these feats far surpass quote-unquote allowed human strength. This allows characters like William Afton, for example, to be able to somewhat contend with the originals in combat while still being somewhat human, although it should be noted that they were off guard. However, such strength is still enough to pull apart a robot by its weaker joints, and even very quickly at that, given both his supernatural levels of willpower and his good planning. For some quicker, minor abilities, some users show to be able to emit waves which cause the brain to hallucinate illusions, much like the sound discs. They can also use such abilities to manipulate the mind of someone to create intense negative emotion, and then kill that someone to obtain more potent remnants than if they killed them normally, allowing them to live longer and gain more out of that singular kill. Some users, mainly Eleanor, can trap people inside of their own memories, and can also use ball pits full of memories to create pseudo-time machines. In summary, humans with Remnant are able to avoid death. It's not a type of regeneration quick enough to matter in a fight, but it can slowly regenerate organs and such needed to function, and can also stave off things like diseases or anything else considered fatal. It's important to note it's weak to fire. However, William Afton later dons the iconic Springtrap suit, which essentially nullifies this weakness given its metallic composition being heavily resistant to heat. It also allows enhanced strength, as the limits placed on regular humans don't exist given the brain's limited functionality or are otherwise overridden. Anything not essential to survival in the body is not sustained on purpose, so the energy which would otherwise be used to regenerate useless parts can instead be used more efficiently where it's needed to ensure the existence of a specific being for longer. The entirety of Remnant's abilities are, firstly, eternal life, of course, and secondly, abilities which assist in gaining more of it, more eternal life. This would be through the enhancing of the strength of an otherwise weak and decaying body, allowing one to kill in such a state, and also through the quote-unquote buttering up of victims by making them feel intense negative emotions before death, which results in more potent remnants which actually kill them, allowing obviously to live longer. Now, I was planning to end the video, but I'm going to take a few more minutes to address certain claims about Remnant essentially being a system, which can also transfer physical power between different vessels. How does this happen in a system where souls are simply memories in the form of electromagnetic signals on the subatomic level infused into metal? I'm not really sure. It's mostly derived from generally biased and uneducated folk who lack the formal education on science fiction concepts, physics, and philosophical concepts, who come up with these ideas as they don't really have any other way to explain Remnant. There's always been a hyperfixation on Remnant being sort of like a magic system, although it's always been described to be very scientific. You can look at the games as where the series is portrayed as like a supernatural horror, but if you look at the books, it's more of a deep dive into philosophy and science, at least comparing relatively to the games. Regardless, let's look at these two images from the AR game. Both note that gaining more Remnant increases attack abilities or strength in some way. Unfortunately, these are game mechanics. It's never been proven that these concepts exist outside of the game. Most likely, this was added to the version of Remnant in the game as it needed a progression/level up system, so different levels of difficulty can exist outside of RNG. Also, set attacking abilities and whatnot are found next to things such as salvaging, which is a system in game for recycling robots to get different loot, such as CPUs. Somehow, having Remnant helps you get better rates? That's pretty unlikely. People will also bring up humans like the Aftons doing superhuman things, but I've already explained those earlier in the video. Of course, a being in which feels nearly no pain, has insane willpower, and isn't shackled down by the regular limits of the human body would be able to pull off crazy feats, especially when the body can regenerate later, even when sustaining damage from overexertion. Anyways, that will be about it for this video. My videos are usually a little bit too long, so I do want to split this up. I'm going to do the one for robots at some point. I want to do one or two maybe in between that, unless people really care that much. I feel like people care more about Remnant in regards to the humans we see in the series, but maybe not. Either way, I'll write the script one day. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you later.